Thanks, Joe. I think we need the clicker.
Do you want to put the clicker, Joe?
Okay. All right, thanks. All right, well, thanks for the introduction, Joe. So I'm going to talk about IoT, and in particular what my group at ARM does. So I think most of you are probably familiar with ARM. We have two main groups at ARM. One is called IPG. So that's the IP group that develops all the CPUs and other IP that gets designed into SoCs. And then the other group is my group, which is called IoT Services Group. Stands in short, we call it ISG. And my group is looking at how can we monetize IoT beyond the work that we are doing in our IP group. And I'm going to talk a little bit about the challenges that we see in scaling IoT and some of the solutions. Now, this is such a big, vast topic that I'm not going to be able to do justice to it today in the sort of 20-30 minutes that we have. So I'm going to go very fast, but I'm going to be around later today until about 1:30 or so. So feel free to come and ask me any questions on what I cover today. I'm also happy that I'm going before the next speaker, because then, you know, he can't steal my thunder. So hopefully there'll be no overlap with what Ed's going to talk about, but I'm really looking forward to that as well. So first, let me just start with software. And what we are seeing over time and time again, is everyone talks about data being the new oil. And I'm talking about data because at the end of the day, IoT is going to generate a huge amount of data. All these devices and sensors that we're going to deploy will generate a lot of data. And that data is the new oil. But actually, the data is only useful if somebody can derive some insight from that data. And it's really this insight that is derived in the form of applications. And what you've seen over the last many years is that the types of applications that come out keep evolving, keep improving, and actually disrupt existing industries as well. And you see that in particular with what's happening in, for example, companies like Netflix, who are digital companies, how they are disrupting or how they have disrupted traditional industries. And I believe that IoT is going to fuel that even further as companies start recognizing how they can take advantage of what the data is telling them. So really, it's about software at the end of the day, but that software will come from the data. And the data is going to be growing a lot. You know, this is just a generic chart that's got no real axis other than to say what we're going to see from IoT in terms of data will be exponentially bigger in terms of amount of data compared to what we have seen from PCs or what we've seen from smartphones. And that data will be a challenge, right? Because in terms of how do you organize the data, how do you make sense of the data, that's going to be a huge challenge. And we're doing a little bit about that in my group as well, in terms of how do we make it easy for the IoT devices that are going to be out there to generate the data, to send the data, to organize the data, and then enable somebody to get insights from that data. I believe that actually the next generation of applications that we're going to see will be a result of combining two things. So we call this the digital and physical worlds coming together. The digital world is data that already exists, whether it's data that's already in your data center or in the cloud, because you've got different sources of data. I'm going to show you an example of what I mean by the digital data, and then how you can combine it with physical data to generate these insights. So the physical data is the data that comes from the devices that are out there or that will get deployed. All of that will need to be using machine learning, and ultimately you need to enable a transformation of your business in some fashion, because that's when the value comes in. If you're a company that has a project on IoT, that project, the question that most companies are asking is, what's the value to me? So you have to transform your business in the form of either generating more revenue or in the form of maybe improving your operational efficiencies. So let me just start with an example, right? And this example, some of you might look at and say, well, what does this have to do with IoT? Because the example is about somebody like me who wants to buy a car, right? Actually, the picture was different before, but they decided I should personalize it. So the car is probably the second most expensive thing that most people will buy. The first being your house. And so when I go looking for a car, I usually do a lot of research, right? And I will browse either on my phone, I might browse on my computer, I might browse at work, I might browse at home to look for what's the right car for me. And from a Subaru perspective, what that means is that all the different areas that I am touching for Subaru go into different places inside that company. And all of that data exists in different silos. So as you can see over here, if you think about my journey as either as a potential customer or me making a decision to buy the car and then becoming the customer, that data exists in different silos. So on the left-hand side is the journey that I went through when I was searching. On the right-hand side, I became a customer, I have a car, the car is sending data, right? You've got telematics in your car that potentially is sending data. And that data goes into Subaru and exists in different silos. So if the data exists in different silos, the question is, how do you make sense of it? What does it tell you? How do you improve, how does Subaru improve my journey, right? My customer journey to then make it better for me, and they can benefit from that as well. And so one of the things that I think we'll need is the ability to enable somebody to combine that data, right? Combine the data from my web experiences, in this case, with my physical car data. And then using that, Subaru can get a much better view of me as a person, right? And my thoughts about whether I want to buy the car, once I've bought the car, what am I doing with it? And maybe they can offer me better services as a result of that. So this, I think, is the sort of thing, while this talks about customer journey, you can imagine something like that being applicable to different types of scenarios. And if you can do that, what happens is you get benefits. So what Subaru used to do is they used to then take that data, if you remember the previous slide, and they would have humans define the rules. Right? How likely was I to buy it? Maybe I was possibly going to buy it. Maybe I was marginal, and so on. So we haven't got the numbers here, but the top two categories, which says likely and possibly, were about 20-25% each. So if you could improve that, right, then the probability of me buying, you could predict better. So if I was in the bottom category and I walked into a dealership, then you don't really want to spend time with me because I'm unlikely to buy. But actually, if I was one of those guys that was in the top category or the top two categories, if you knew that, then you could spend a lot more time with me and potentially convert that into a sale. If you can convert that into a sale, then what that means is that your revenue starts going up because you're spending time on me. And so this is a real case study where actually Subaru more than doubled their conversion rate. And because they doubled their conversion rate, their revenue, they've rolled this out in Japan, the revenue went up. Unfortunately, I can't give you the exact numbers, but I can tell you it wasn't $10 million, right? It was much more than that. And this was a direct result of the ability to organize their data, put it into a unified place, and then being able to use machine learning and making sense of that data to predict whether a customer who walks into a dealership is likely to buy. And what Subaru is now doing is they are then seeing this as the first project. They can see the revenue increase in Japan. They're applying it globally, right? So they're taking that and applying it globally. So far, it's all marketing, right? But actually, they can see the potential for physical data coming in and transforming their business as a result. So the total economic value for Subaru is estimated to be north of $2 billion. Some of that is coming from revenue increases because they will roll this out across the globe, and some of that is coming from improving their operational efficiencies. I'll just talk about operational efficiencies. For example, on the middle of this slide, it talks about logistics and supply chain. So, as an example, if Subaru could predict that these type of cars were very popular in San Diego, Southern California, then they can organize their supply chain because of that information to make sure that the right cars appear here and are available for a consumer who wants to buy them. So that's managing their supply chain because they've got visibility about what are customers looking for, what are customers buying, and so on. And if I bought it, I have a physical car, then the telematics data is telling them maybe how my driving preferences